They laughed, they filmed, they even made a hashtag chasing cringe Queen Lily. But 37 seconds into her song, the room went dead silent. One girl, one guitar, one line that made the school bully drop his phone. She sang a single lyric that made even the loudest mouths in the room cover their faces, not in laughter. In shame. It was supposed to be a joke entry, just another victim on stage. But what happened next turned into the most shared moment in school history, and you're about to find out why. Don't blink, don't skip, because if you leave now, you'll miss the one note that broke a bully's silence. Comment, "I heard it," if that lyric hit you too. And if it didn't, maybe you were the one holding the phone. You probably wouldn't have noticed her, not unless you were looking for someone to laugh at. Lily Thompson walked the halls like a shadow, thin sweater clutched tight across her chest, eyes always down, shoes that barely made a sound. She had the kind of face people remembered not for its features, but for the way it turned away, like she was always bracing herself, always halfway to disappearing. And maybe, in a way, she was. There was no tragic backstory you could wrap into a neat, viral package. No car accident, no illness, just years of tiny cruelties. A desk shoved an inch too far, a birthday no one mentioned, whispers that followed her like perfume. It was the slow erosion of self, the kind that doesn't make headlines, just quiet. Girls. But what the crowd never knew, what no one stopped long enough to wonder, was that Lily had a voice. Not the kind meant for shouting back in the hallways, not the type that breaks glass or belts a show tune. No, her voice was the kind that stayed with you, that settled behind your ribs like a memory, like a letter you never opened because you weren't ready to feel what was inside. She sang it home, mostly, in her room where the lights were soft and the walls knew how to listen. She wrote songs late at night, the kind of confessions only a melody could carry without breaking. Lyrics scribbled on the back of old math tests, folded into the pages of books she never lent out. Her guitar, a second-hand acoustic with a crack along the neck, rested beside her bed like a loyal friend too quiet to judge. When the school announced the annual talent show, no one expected her to sign up, least of all herself. But she did. Something about the way her name looked on that sign-up sheet made her hands shake, like she'd just dropped a secret in the middle of a crowded room. She overheard them laughing before she even turned the corner. Lily Thompson? On stage? Oh, this I've got to see. Phones were already out. Hashtags were drafted in the bathroom stalls. They called it a joke entry. That phrase stuck. A joke. A joke. A joke. She carried that word with her like a backpack full of bricks. It echoed in her footsteps. But instead of breaking under it, Lily did something else, something strange, something quiet. She started writing. The song didn't come all at once. It arrived in fragments, like puzzle pieces dropped from the sky. One line at breakfast, a chord during lunch, a verse that wouldn't let her sleep. It was about being invisible, about screaming on the inside while smiling on the outside. It was about her, but not just her. It was about anyone who had ever felt like a ghost in their own life. By the week of the show, the whispers had evolved into bets. Would she cry? Would she freeze? Would she walk off stage mid-song? No one expected a performance. They expected a punchline. But Lily had something else planned. She wasn't going up there to impress, or to prove, or to win. She was going up there to be heard. And when the lights finally dimmed and her name was called in that offhand, almost mocking tone, she stepped onto the stage like a secret about to be told, and the room didn't even know it was about to change. The days leading up to the talent show grew heavier, like the sky before a thunderstorm. Lily moved through them the way she always had, quiet, small, careful. But now, every corner she turned seemed to hum with the weight of watching. The glances weren't just cruel anymore. They were entertained. A joke is funniest when the punchline doesn't know she's the joke. By Wednesday, someone had created a meme. It was a photo of Lily from 3 years ago, braces still visible, eyes wide and startled as if someone had snapped the picture mid-thought. Underneath, "Coming soon to a talent show near you, bring tissues for tears of laughter." It spread like smoke. On Thursday, someone slipped a note into her locker. Just one word scribbled in red marker: mute. No signature, just cruelty served with efficiency. Even her English teacher, sweet Mrs. Caldwell with her sunflower earrings and always too slow voice, paused when Lily handed in her permission slip for the performance. "Are you sure, Lily?" she'd asked, voice gentle like the girl might break if spoken to too loudly. Lily nodded. She didn't try to explain. She couldn't. How could she describe the knot in her stomach that tightened every time she walked past those laughing lockers? How could she say that the only thing louder than their mockery was the silence that followed her everywhere else? She just kept writing, kept strumming her guitar at night, bare fingers pressing into strings until they burned. The song, her "It" was finished now, every word sharpened like a blade but wrapped in velvet. It didn't rage, it didn't accuse. It simply told the truth, in a voice that was hers and only hers. The morning of the show, she could hardly eat. Her hands trembled as she braided her hair. She dressed simply, a soft blue sweater, jeans, her worn sneakers, no makeup, no armor. She would go as she was, that was the point. Her guitar case felt heavier than usual. Or maybe it was just the eyes. The auditorium was already buzzing when she arrived. The usual suspects, cheerleaders, theater kids, the smug clique from the AV club, held court in clusters, half watching the performers, half checking their feeds. Someone had already set up a TikTok countdown. "A talent show fails choirs tonight's headliner, Lily the Lullaby." Backstage, the noise was muffled but no less cruel. Laughter echoed. A snort. Someone did an impression of her. Hunched shoulders, head ducked, guitar slung too low. Got laughs. Lily sat alone, fingers running absently over the guitar's neck like it could comfort her. Then came the MC's voice. Up next, a unique performance from a student some of you may know well. Give it up for Lily Thompson. The name dropped like a pin in a cathedral. She walked out into the lights, a lone figure against the stage's wide, yawning emptiness. The microphone stood like a dare. She stepped to it, unslung her guitar, adjusted the strap. From the front row, a boy whispered loudly, "Bet she sings to her cats." Laughter, not loud, just enough. She didn't look up, not yet. Her fingers found the first chord, and then she sang. Not loudly, not theatrically. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it was clear and warm and heartbreakingly honest. The lyrics weren't clever. They didn't rhyme perfectly. They weren't polished, but they were true. You pass me every morning, but I've never been seen. Not really. Not like you see each other. All loud, all bright, all clean. I'm the space between the bell and your joke, the silence after someone leaves. The name you only remember when you need someone to tease. The guitar was a quiet heartbeat beneath her words. But I still breathe even when you don't see it. I still hope even when you don't mean it. And I still sing, even when you call me a joke. There was a moment, a single moment when something shifted. The boy in the front row dropped his phone, not dramatically, just slowly, like his hands had forgotten what they were doing. One girl, mid-Snapchat, lowered her camera. A silence settled in the room. Not bored silence, not polite silence. It was listening. Lily's eyes stayed closed as she sang, not out of fear, out of feeling. She wasn't performing. She was pouring. The tremble in her voice wasn't weakness, it was real. It was the sound of someone telling the truth for the first time, out loud. By the time she reached the final note, her voice faded like a candle, burning itself out, and no one clapped. Not yet, because no one had remembered how to breathe. Stillness. That was all there was in the seconds after the final note. The air itself seemed to hesitate, as if unsure whether to move again, unsure whether it was even allowed to. Lily stood there, head slightly bowed, the last chord still humming, faintly against her guitar strings like a memory that refused to fade. Her fingers slowly lifted, hesitant, as if releasing the notes would make them vanish forever. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She just was. And in that moment, the girl they had laughed at, the one they called a joke, stood taller than any of them had ever seen. A seat creaked somewhere in the middle of the auditorium. Someone shifted. And then, softly, impossibly, came a sound. Not clapping. Not yet. It was quieter than that. A sniffle. From the front row, the boy who had dropped his phone, Mason Calloway, linebacker, local TikTok royalty, self-declared king of sarcasm, was wiping his face, not dramatically, not seeking attention, just trying to hold something inside that didn't want to be hidden anymore. And then, like an old building letting go of its weight, the room exhaled. One hand clapped, then another, then two more. Wasn't a roar, not the thundering applause of a talent show finale. It was something softer. It was respect. It built slowly, unsure at first, like the room was apologizing in rhythm. But then it grew, and then people were standing. Not all at once, no, never like the movies. They stood in ripples. One girl in the third row, then a boy with his hand over his mouth, then another. Until, impossibly, Lily was staring at an auditorium on its feet, applauding her. The stage lights cast a glow around her, haloing the worn sweater, the scuffed shoes, the trembling fingers on her guitar. And for the first time in a long time, Lily looked up, straight into the crowd, and they didn't look away. No one was filming, no one was mocking. The joke, it seemed, had shifted. But no one was laughing now. She stepped back from the mic, nodded once, not a bow, not a performance flourish, just a small acknowledgement. A thank you from someone who had just opened her chest in front of 100 people and somehow survived. Backstage, she walked through the curtain into a wall of silence. Not cold, not awkward, reverent. A few performers parted for her. One girl, Melissa Reyes, known for her flawless choreography and sharper tongue, reached out and touched Lily's arm. No words, just a touch, light and meaningful, like passing. A torch she never knew Lily already held. Lily sat down in the corner again, heart pounding. Her hands shook, but not from fear. It was something else now. It was release. Meanwhile, outside, the crowd didn't leave. They stood, clustered, stunned, replaying what had just happened like it needed to be understood again and again. Someone had filmed it after all, but not mockingly. A junior named Evie who had pressed record out of instinct when she felt something. Shift in the room. By the time Lily had packed up her guitar and left the auditorium, the video was already posted. Caption, "She sang the truth." And we all felt it. Username E for empathy. 10 minutes later, the video had 3,000 views. An hour later, $45,000. By morning, 1.2 million. The comments section was a universe in itself. This made me cry in public. Who is she? This is what art is, raw, broken, beautiful. Wait, people laughed at her, those people should be ashamed. What's the name of the song? I need this on Spotify, like yesterday. And threaded deep in the replies. I was one of them, I laughed too. But tonight I heard her, and I'm sorry. Lily didn't know it yet, but her world had changed. Not all at once, not overnight, but it had begun. What she had done, what she had survived, was more than a song. It was a confrontation between cruelty and courage, between silence and sound, between the person they thought she was and the truth she refused to hide anymore. That night, Lily didn't sleep. Not because of anxiety, but because her phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Texts, emails, messages from people she didn't know, people she'd never meet, all saying the same thing. I feel seen. And in the darkness of her room, with her guitar resting beside her bed like always, Lily whispered two words no one had ever heard her say before. Thank you. Not to the audience, not to the bullies, not even to herself, but to the voice that had waited so long to be heard. And now, finally, was. By sunrise, the girl who had walked through school hallways like a ghost had become something else. She hadn't changed, but the world around her had. The morning after the show, Lily awoke not to her usual alarm, but to a series of text pings that refused to stop. Her inbox was flooded. Some names she recognized, old classmates she hadn't spoken to in years. Some were strangers. One message simply read, "I watched your song in silence last night. I was one of them. One of the ones who laughed. I'm so sorry. You changed something in me." Lily sat in bed, her phone trembling in her hand, her hair still smelling faintly of auditorium dust and stage light. The video had surpassed 3 million views. 3 million. The hashtags had changed. Gone were the cruel, mocking ones. In their place, I hear Lily sing, "Invisible." No more. Her song woke us. There were duets, covers, piano renditions of her melody played by kids in other states. A girl in Ohio painted a canvas inspired by the final line of Lily's song, "Even when you call me a joke." The painting was dark and delicate, like storm clouds parting just enough to let a single light beam through. That light was Lily. At school, things felt quieter. Not silent, no. But the sharpness in the air was gone. No laughter, behind hands when she walked by. No eyes rolling when she stepped into a room. People moved out of her way now. Not from avoidance, but reverence. Like they weren't quite sure how to approach someone who had turned their own pain into a mirror and forced them to see themselves. Even the teachers looked at her differently. Mr. Dresden, who had barely glanced up during her oral reports, now paused when she raised her hand. "Miss Thompson," he said, voice laced with something like respect. "Go ahead." Lily still dressed the same, still wore the same soft sweaters and kept her eyes down when the halls got too loud, but inside something had shifted. There was space now, a little more breath between her ribs, a little more certainty in her step. The girl who had once flinched at the echo of her name now stood a little taller when she heard it, because now they were saying it with wonder. 3 days after the performance, her mother got a call from a local radio station. They wanted to feature Lily's song on a segment, called Voices You've Never Heard But Should. The DJ's voice, warm and curious, left a message. "We don't get many like her, real, unpolished, it cuts through. Tell her we'd be honored." Lily listened to the message on repeat for an hour before finally pressing call back. Later, that week, a regional news outlet did a story. Local teens' talent show song shatters stereotypes, sparks national response. The photo they used was one snapped mid-performance. Her eyes closed, her fingers curved on the strings, her mouth just open enough to show the beginning of a note. Her face was soft, vulnerable, powerful. Under the article, in the comments, someone wrote, "Funny how the quiet ones always end up holding the loudest truths." Even Mason, the boy from the front row, the one who had laughed the loudest, found her by the vending machines one afternoon. He didn't approach with swagger or charm. No entourage, just him. He handed her a folded piece of paper, then walked away. She opened it slowly. Inside was a single line. "You made me feel something I didn't know I'd buried. I owe you more." Then an apology. "I owe you my attention." Lily didn't smile, but something inside her unclenched. The truth was, she didn't need their applause. Not anymore. She had learned something on that stage that couldn't be unlearned, that even in a room full of noise, a whisper could change everything. She began receiving invitations to sing, small charity events, coffee shops, school assemblies across the district. People didn't come expecting fireworks, they came expecting truth. And Lily, quiet as ever, gave it to them. Her music wasn't polished, it wasn't pop. But it was hers, honest, gentle, devastatingly real, and in every room, without fail, at least one person wept, not because the notes were sad, but because they were true. In that truth, Lily had done something few ever manage. She made her pain speak. And in doing so, she gave others permission to feel, to remember, to begin again. She walked into school the following Monday not as a star. Lily never felt like one, but as something far rarer, someone who had told the truth and been heard. The world hadn't turned into sunshine. The bullies didn't vanish overnight. But there was a softness now, a new hush that followed her. Not the hush of disdain or dismissal, but of reverence, recognition, and a curious kind of guilt. People moved aside for her in the hallways, not out of obligation, but out of a strange, humble respect. Like they'd realized they'd lived beside a storm and never once felt the rain until it was poured into a song. The same teachers who used to forget her name now spoke it like a gentle artifact. "Lily, would you mind sharing some lyrics with the class? Lily, if you ever want to record that, I have a friend who runs a studio." One day, Mr. Dresden, stoic, stone-faced veteran English teacher, asked if he could quote a line from her song in a lecture about modern poetry. He recited her lyric like it belonged beside the greats. Lily nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. Sure, but she felt it, deep and warm and real, that this, finally, was being seen. Melissa, once the queen of cruel side eyes, now walked beside her to fourth period art. "You know," she said one morning, "your song made me think of my sister. She's quiet, too. I think I've been too loud around her." It wasn't an apology, but it was close, real. Enough and Mason, the boy who once held court with his laughs and hashtags, he didn't follow her around or try to rewrite his legacy overnight. But he listened now. When she spoke, when others did, his jokes came slower, softer, sometimes not at all. One day he asked, "Would you ever want to collaborate on something?" She raised an eyebrow. He lifted his hands. I don't know. Maybe write something. Feel like you do." She didn't answer right away, but she didn't say no, because the old version of Lily might have hidden in the echo of that question, might have waited for it to turn cruel. But the girl who had stood alone on a stage and cracked open the silence? She was no longer hiding, she was building. Weeks passed, then months. Lily kept writing. She performed at her first public venue, a quiet cafe on a rainy Thursday. There were 12 people in the room, including her mom, but they listened. Really listened. And one of them, a woman in the back with tired eyes and a notebook, was a journalist. The next day, an article appeared online. A voice you didn't know you needed. It quoted a line from her second song, "Even silence can sound like music when someone finally listens." From that point forward, things didn't explode. They expanded, steadily, gently, like the slow bloom of spring after a hard frost. She released her first EP, self-recorded, raw, titled simply, "The Joke." Not out of bitterness, out of reclamation. Each track told a piece of her story, and of others who had walked through similar quiet corridors, cloaked in invisibility. The final song ended not with words, but with the soft pluck of a string that slowly faded to silence, a silence that felt earned, sacred. Lily began receiving messages from people across the world. "Your song helped me tell my mother I wasn't okay. I played your EP at my support group. You made me feel less alone." She printed everyone, folded them into a box beneath her bed, her quiet trophies. And when the next school talent show came around, she didn't sign up. But she was invited to close the night as a special guest. This time, when she stepped onto the stage, the applause began before she played a note. She didn't say much, just sat down, tuned her guitar, and smiled. Small, private, but real. Then she played a new song about healing, about how pain, when sung honestly, becomes something sacred. A bridge, not a wound. And as the final note faded into that familiar, reverent hush, she whispered, "Thank you for listening." And this time the silence was thunderous. They tried to write her story as a punchline, but she picked up a guitar, turned the page, and wrote a chorus they'll never forget. If her song touched something in you, if you saw a piece of yourself in her quiet strength, please share this story. Someone out there might need to hear it today. And if you'd like more stories that heal, that whisper truth, and remind us of the beauty in being seen, hit subscribe. This space is for voices like hers and yours.